After fixing their leaky pipes all day, my daughter-in-law looked at me and said, "You're just old and useless. Stop pretending you're helping." My son stayed silent as she turned her back on me. I'm a retired contractor from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Spent over 4 decades building homes, fixing plumbing, wiring, patching roofs. If it broke, I fixed it. I'm not a talker. I'm a doer. Always have been. Since I retired, I don't ask for much. I fish a little, play cards at the VFW, try not to bother my son. But when he calls, I come. That's how I was raised. That's how I raised him, or so I thought. My son Chris is smart. Works in tech. Never liked working with his hands, but I respected that. Not everyone wants to work outside in the cold with splinters and mud. He married Tara 3 years ago. First, she seemed all right, kind of cold, but some people are just stiff until you get to know them. But after a few months, I saw it. The eye rolls, the passive-aggressive comments, the way she'd walk out of the room whenever I talked. I figured maybe she felt uncomfortable around in-laws. I gave her space. I tried to tell myself she'd warm up. Maybe when they had kids. Maybe when she saw I wasn't trying to interfere. But the truth is Tara never saw me as family. Not even close. This happened on a Sunday last October. Chris called me around 11 a.m. "Dad, the sink's leaking bad," he said. "Tara's freaking out. We don't know what to do." "You call a plumber?" "Yeah, but they can't come out until Friday. It's getting worse. There's water under the cabinet. Can you?" "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. I grabbed my tools and drove over. When I got to their house, I knocked and walked in. Chris gave me a half smile. Tara didn't say hi. She just pointed at the kitchen and said, "It's under there. Be careful not to ruin the cabinets. They're custom." That's how she greeted me. Like I was some handyman off Craigslist. I didn't say anything. Just got on my knees and looked under the sink. Sure enough, the P-trap was cracked and leaking slow. Probably from bad install work, cheap plastic joints, and no seal tape. I started pulling things out from under the cabinet. Old sponges, dish soap, some cleaning sprays. Half the stuff was expired. Then I dried the cabinet bottom and started disassembling the pipe. Tara stood behind me most of the time, arms folded, watching. At one point she said, "You sure you know what you're doing with newer fittings? It's not like the stuff from your day." I ignored it. Chris brought me a bottle of water and said nothing else. For 4 hours I worked in silence. Cut the pipe, sealed the new connections, checked for leaks, even replaced a rusted shut-off valve while I was down there. I didn't charge them a thing. I didn't even ask for lunch. When I finally stood up, knees cracking, back sore, I said, "That's done. Should hold for years if no one messes with it." That's when Tara looked at me and said it. "You're just old and useless. Stop pretending you're helping." Just like that. No warning. No emotion. Like I was a piece of junk she wanted hauled away. I blinked. Not sure I heard her right. She didn't stop. "You act like you're doing us this big favor, but honestly, you're more of a burden. You smell like oil, you track dirt, and half the time I have to clean up after you. It's sad, really. You don't even realize how in the way you are." I looked at Chris, my son. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, mouth shut, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. I stared at him for what felt like a full minute, waiting. Nothing. Then she turned her back and walked out. No, thank you. No, good job. Just silence. Something inside me cracked. Not like anger. Worse. It was disappointment. Deep. Cold. I felt like I'd been hit in the chest. I packed my tools. Quiet. Slow. Chris finally spoke when I was near the door. "Thanks, Dad." I didn't reply. I went home that day and sat in the garage for 2 hours. Didn't turn the light on. Just stared at the wall. I kept thinking, after everything, this is how they see me? I gave Chris everything. Paid for his college. Helped him with his first car. Helped him with a down payment on that house. I even fixed their roof 2 summers ago when the shingles curled. On my own dime. And she thinks I'm useless? And he, my son, says nothing? That's when the thoughts started creeping in. Not petty thoughts. Strategic ones. I may be old, but I'm not done. They wanted to treat me like a burden? Fine. But they forgot one thing. That house, the one they live in, is not just theirs. Because 3 years ago, when they were trying to buy it and couldn't get approved for the full mortgage, I co-signed the loan. I'm on the deed. Legally, that house is just as much mine as theirs. And I had plans for that house. Plans they wouldn't see coming. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed going over every little thing. Every repair I ever did for them. Every family dinner where I bit my tongue while Tara made some snide comment. Every holiday where she sat on her phone while I played with the grandkids. I thought about Chris. About how he used to run to me when he scraped his knee. How we built a treehouse together. How I taught him to drive. And now he stood there and let his wife spit in my face with her words. I was done being the quiet one. Done being the guy who helps while they mock me behind closed doors. The next morning, I pulled out the property file from my safe. I had all the paperwork. The house title. The loan agreement. My name was right there, co-owner. And not just co-signer either. They had bad credit at the time, so the house was put in my name and Chris's, not Tara's. They paid the mortgage, but I helped with the down payment and some closing costs. Their name wasn't solid enough on its own. I was the only reason they got that house. I called a lawyer I knew from my contracting days, used to handle real estate issues when jobs went sideways. I asked, hypothetically, what can a co-owner of a house do if the other party's being disrespectful, hostile, and refusing to acknowledge the agreement? He paused, then said, depends on how far you want to take it. I said all the way. The first step was getting the paperwork updated. Quietly, my lawyer filed a motion to partition the property. It's a legal request to split or sell jointly owned property when parties can't agree. I didn't tell Chris. Not yet. I also pulled bank statements, emails, anything showing I'd financially contributed to repairs and improvements. There was plenty. I'd wired money for the roof, bought the new water heater, even paid for landscaping the year before. It was all there. While the legal stuff moved slowly, I started planting little seeds. Next time Chris called for help with something, installing a baby gate upstairs, I said, you better ask your wife if I'm still too useless. He was quiet, then said she didn't mean it like that. I laughed once. Hard and sharp. Sure she didn't. A few weeks later, the papers were served. Chris called me that night, voice shaking. Dad, what is this? You're forcing us to sell the house? I said calmly, I'm exploring my options. I own half. And your wife seems to think I don't belong there. So maybe I shouldn't. Jesus, Dad, this is my home. No, son. It's our home. And your silence gave her permission to treat me like trash. He was quiet. I heard Tara yelling in the background. She's freaking out, he muttered. Good, I said. I hung up. That's when the game started. Tara sent me a long, passive-aggressive email trying to guilt-trip me. She talked about family and boundaries and how some people don't know when to let go. I didn't reply. A week later, they tried offering me money to buy me out. It was a joke. They lowballed me by nearly $40,000 under market. I countered with an appraisal. When they saw the number, they went silent for 2 weeks. Then Chris showed up at my door. I hadn't seen him face-to-face since the day of the pipe incident. He looked tired. Older. Like he hadn't been sleeping either. He said, "Can we talk?" I nodded and let him in. We sat at my kitchen table. No drinks. No food. Just quiet. "I don't know what you're doing," he said, "but this isn't the way. We're family." "No," I said. "Family speaks up when something's wrong. Family doesn't let someone get spit on and say nothing." He rubbed his face. "She was out of line." "I know, but you're blowing this up. You're hurting the kids." That hit me in the gut. "I'm hurting the kids?" I asked. "Your wife humiliated me in front of them. What kind of example does that set?" He didn't have an answer. Then I dropped the next hammer. "I'm not just selling my half. I'm also going public with what she said. I've written it all down. If you think I'm afraid of what people will say, you're wrong. Let the neighbors know who she really is." Chris stood up fast. "You're going to ruin us." I looked him dead in the eyes. "No, son. You already did when you stayed silent." He left without another word. 3 days after that conversation, I got a letter from a different attorney. Tara had hired her own lawyer. She wasn't just trying to stop the partition suit. She was trying to claim I never had intent to occupy the home, so my co-ownership was symbolic and should be removed. I read that part twice. Symbolic? I was furious. They were trying to erase me. Rewrite history. Make it seem like I was some old fool they barely tolerated. They didn't just want me out of the house. They wanted to strip me of everything I had done to help them get there in the first place. I called my lawyer. He said this isn't unusual. They're playing dirty, but you have too much paper trail for them to win this. Still, it made me see things clearer. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. It was war, and Tara was getting bolder. Around Thanksgiving, I was supposed to see my grandkids. Chris had said to come by in the afternoon. Just a quiet visit, no drama. I even bought little Lego sets for them. I knocked on the door and waited. Tara opened it. She stood there, arms folded. Didn't even invite me in. "What are you doing here?" she asked, like I was a stranger. Chris said I could see the kids today. Her lips twisted. "Not today. Actually, not for a while." "Why?" She smiled. That smug, superior kind of smile. "Until you drop the lawsuit, we're putting visitation on pause. We don't want them confused." My hand tightened on the bag with the toys. I said nothing, just nodded, and walked away. That night, I wrote my grandkids letters. Each one. I told them I loved them. Told them Grandpa was just giving their parents space, but I'd always be around. I mailed the letters without a return address, just so they'd know I hadn't disappeared. I also went through every home improvement I had ever done on that house. The new roof? I paid for that outright. The HVAC system? I helped install it and fronted the cost. The deck? I designed and built it with my own hands. I had photos, receipts, notes, everything. My lawyer filed a new motion, this time not just for partition, but for reimbursement of uncompensated capital improvements. Legally, I was asking the court to make Chris and Tara either buy me out with interest or sell the home entirely and split the proceeds. Suddenly, they stopped calling me. But that's when something happened I didn't expect. My neighbor Janice, who lived across from Chris and Tara, called me out of the blue. "You might want to know," she said, "there's been people coming and going from the house lately. Real estate agents. Quiet ones. Tara's been walking them through, room by room." I froze. They were trying to sell the house without telling me. They were trying to go around me. They thought I'd be too old, too slow, too soft to fight back. Big mistake. I made one call to my attorney, then another to the county office. By the next week, I had a temporary injunction filed. No sale, no lease. Nothing could happen without my consent. And I sent Chris a final message. "You picked her. You picked silence. Now you get to pick up the pieces." 2 days later, Chris showed up again. This time, he was alone. He looked different. Shaved, clean shirt, a little more alert. He sat down at my kitchen table like last time. "She went behind my back," he said. I didn't know she was trying to sell it. I didn't say a word. I waited. She told me I had to choose. Said if I didn't cut you off completely, she'd take the kids and go back to her parents' place in Illinois. I raised my eyebrows. "And?" He swallowed hard. I told her to go. I sat back, honestly stunned. "She packed up the kids and left 2 days ago," he said. "I'm alone now." I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sorry either. I felt numb. He looked at me. I was wrong. I should have spoken up. I let her poison everything. I didn't answer right away. Then I asked, "And what now?" He shrugged. "I want to fix it. I don't care about the house. I just want to fix what I broke." I believed him. Part of me did. But the damage was deep. And Tara wasn't gone for good, not yet. I knew that woman. She'd be back. She wasn't the type to lose quietly. And I wasn't done either. Because I hadn't played my final card. Not yet. I waited. After Chris told me Tara left with the kids, I didn't make a move. I let a few weeks pass. I didn't chase. I didn't reach out. I knew her. She wasn't done. She never leaves quietly. She circles back, always trying to control the story. And just like clockwork, she did. 3 weeks later, Chris forwarded me an email she sent him. The subject line just said, "We need to talk, lawyers aren't the answer." She wanted to come back. Not to him. Not to us. To the house. In the email, she said things like, "This is our home and I'm willing to forgive your father if he steps down. I'll agree to terms if he formally removes his name from the deed. I'm willing to put the past behind me for the sake of the children." She didn't mention her behavior. Didn't apologize. Not once. No mention of her insult or trying to block me from my grandkids or trying to sell the house behind my back. That was her version of a peace offer. Chris asked, "What do I say?" I told him the truth. "You say nothing. Let me handle it." I called my lawyer that same day. We filed for full sale of the property. No buyout, no negotiations. I wanted it on the open market. Let the highest bidder take it. 3 weeks later, the house was listed. Tara came storming back. She filed her own motion, saying she had occupational rights and child stability concerns. She begged the court to let her keep it, said selling would uproot the kids, ruin their routine, and damage their sense of home. But she hit a wall. The judge reviewed everything, my contributions, the insult, the attempt to sell without my consent, even the statements about denying me access to my grandchildren. My lawyer submitted the letter she wrote trying to make me give up my share. That part sealed it. The court ruled in my favor. House was sold in under 3 weeks, for more than they expected. After fees, taxes, and paying off the remaining mortgage, the final check was split between me and Chris. Each of us walked away with $121,000. But I didn't keep mine. I did something better. I used the money to buy a small fixer-upper outside of town. A 1-story brick place with a quiet yard and a solid foundation. Needed some love. Nothing I couldn't handle. I moved in, painted the walls myself, fixed the porch railing, put in new kitchen cabinets. Then I got in touch with a lawyer who specializes in trusts. I set up something called a living legacy fund, one for each of my grandkids. Every year until they're 21, they get a small amount for birthdays and school needs. The rest stays locked until they graduate high school. And in that trust, I left a note. Handwritten. Notarized. It reads, "This money came from the home your mother said I didn't belong in. Every dollar was built with my hands. One day you'll understand. Love, Grandpa." Tara? She didn't take it well. She moved back to Illinois, to her parents' place in Bloomington. I heard from a friend she's renting an apartment and working part-time now. Apparently, the starter home she bragged about in every Facebook post? Gone. Reputation in town? Not great. She called Chris a coward, said he let his father ruin their lives. But Chris, he finally stood up. He filed for full custody, said she was unstable, manipulative, and alienated the kids from their grandfather. The court believed him. Especially when he showed them the old email where she bragged about keeping the kids from me. He got primary custody. The kids live with him now, and I see them every other weekend. We build birdhouses. We fix up bikes. We fish on Sundays. Last month, my granddaughter asked, "Grandpa, why did Mommy say you were useless?" I looked at her and smiled. I guess some people just can't see what's right in front of them. I don't regret anything. Not the lawsuit. Not the sale. Not the cold silence that followed. Sometimes people need to learn the hard way what respect looks like. And sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of someone sharpening their final move. And when that move comes, it cuts deep. I may be old, but I'm not done. Not by a long shot.